Hello, welcome to the Three Orcs channel. This is David, and I decided this week to do another review for another rule system. Last week I reviewed Joseph Bloch's of Greyhawk Grognard, his player's guide for the Greyhawk campaign. I usually don't do these kind of reviews. I stick to my work, which is the Temple of Elemental Evil campaign in the World of Greyhawk, which is the epic campaign from Gary Gygax of all time that I've been working on for the last 7 years. And that campaign website is free to use on the World Anvil website called the Furpabonk Campaign Guide 576 Common Year. All of you that's been following my work, I know you've been using my articles in your campaigns and that you appreciate the non-player characters, the locations, the organizations, everything you need to run the campaign for the open sandbox version of a campaign, not just running the module from the pages. Which is a different kind of campaign setting, a different kind of play style of D&D, where there's campaigns, there's epic open sandbox campaigns that span a series of modules or world events that take months or years to play. There's those kind of games out there that a lot of players appreciate. But also, I appreciate, and so that a lot of players do, that we also appreciate quick sessions, quick modules, quick dungeon modules, one-offs, the kind that you can play in a night or two and just get into it and engage immediately and have a lot of fun. And there's a lot of different rule systems for various types of play. Traditionally, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons and Castles and Crusades is the epic style advanced campaign rule set for playing those kind of games. But there's a lot to be said for these other rule systems, these OSR-like type games that you can run really fun games with and turn them into mini campaigns. And I have a lot of experience doing that with TSR and conventions over the decades. So basically, this video, I'm going to focus on something what people usually don't do. It's more than just a review of Shadowdark, but it's also a review of Old School Essentials, and I'm going to compare the two. And I'll put them up on screen so you can follow along. Honestly, I don't know who the people are that created Shadowdark. I don't understand where it came from or the kind of videos that have been put out supporting it and reviewing it. I watched some of those videos and I kind of wonder what they're talking about. So I'm curious to check it out myself for the first time. And so I went ahead and I downloaded the free version. I did the same thing with Old School Essentials and Hyperborea. And so I'm used to doing something like that and then buying the product later. And so I have a lot of experience of what these products are like. I'm going to go ahead and base my opinion on comparing the two rule books, the general ideas behind them, and case use for these rule sets, and discuss a little bit about case use of these rule sets. In my comparison, I made a short list to prepare for this video. I know these quick, fast, immersive rule sets are for fast OSR type play. They provide the rules light, they provide fast combat, and encourage creativity and role. But before we continue further, I don't know much about the people behind Shadowdark. I did watch a couple of their videos, and they seem to convey that this is a new type of game based on 5th edition, and that it's a superior rule set to get away from what most newer players are playing, which is 5th edition or Pathfinder, and they want to explore other avenues, other kind of games out there. They want to see what OSR is all about. I kind of questioned that when I saw that. Some of these people that do these reviews, I wonder where they come from. One of the reviewers was Basic D&D. He's got some pretty good thoughts on, he's got some pretty good videos over the couple of years, and he's got some good thoughts. And I wondered why he even said that it's kind of similar to the 5th edition mechanics. So I guess we're going to find out and go from there. But I highly doubt it, based on from what I see looking at the rule book. It's not to take away from the rule set. I don't understand why they're saying stuff like that. Maybe they're saying it because they want to attract 5th edition players. Give them make them feel more comfortable about trying the game out. And also, there's another little problem I have with this. School Essentials set the bar for formatting, for light rule set, for quality of product, and that's the one that's pretty much taken over the scene by storm. And the OSR game mostly played over the last several years. They have a basic version modeled after OD&D, 0th edition, and then they have an advanced version which adds 1st edition elements to it. And that's what I ran. I was hired by a school system to run the D&D program for their kids. We have 50 students from 6th grade to high school. We run the Dolmenwood campaign with Old School Essentials, which is a different rule set, but it's still Old School Essentials, and they have a blast. It's rules light, engaging, and a lot of fun with role playing. I felt like both these products are a solution to the same problem. They're a solution to the same kind of play style that people are looking for. So I thought it'd be really interesting to compare the two, and also all the modules and designs they offer. Before we start looking at the rules, I had some notes that I took about some of the things that they're supposed to offer, and I compared the two. The first thing on the list is encouraging creativity. Shadowdark is noted for encouraging creativity and using player brains over the reliance on character sheets. Yes, that is OSR. But it lacks the extensive skill list, prompting players to think outside the box to overcome obstacles like traps. That's what most OSR games do. OSE, while it is rooted in old school play where the player ingenuity is valued, it doesn't explicitly emphasize that aspect in player-facing material in the same degree as Shadowdark. However, the referee's role in applying judgment for unexpected situations implicitly encourages players to do problem solving. We'll get to that about the rules. So the next point I wanted to point out was the rules light. Now, Shadowdark is presented as rules light and intuitive. We'll see. And aiming for quick decisions over rulebook consultation. Okay, that's what OSR game rule systems are usually like. The combat rules are stated to be concise and fitting on 2 pages. Great, because that's what Old School Essentials pretty much coined a couple years ago. OSE is described as a relatively rules-light game, which is really true with the classic version of it, which is 0 edition, and the advanced version is more advanced, so it's going to have more advanced rules. So the rules are kept simple to prioritize imagination and fast-paced action. Yes, that's what most OSR games are supposed to do. The player's tome is $40, containing a substantial amount of rules to cover various situations. And the core mechanics are streamlined. So how many books do you need to buy to play this game? And I know a lot of these reviews mentioned this, so I figured I would too. Shadowdark requires 1 core rulebook for both the game master and the players. It's $60. There's a quick start guide available too, which is what I'm looking at. OSE has a player's tome, which is $40, and also a separate advanced fantasy referee tome, the DM guide, for another $40. So you have to have both these books. You're looking at $80 versus $60. The quality of the books are, I guess, they're similar. They're both stitched, well-made, hardy. I keep mine in the garage and the back of my car, and they hold together, believe me. And I've run kids at the school with these books weekly for like 3 years now. They hold up. They're really nice quality. And I'm sure the Shadowdark is the same based on the reviews I saw. And also, when it comes to budget-friendly price, they both offer a PDF-only version, or you can get PDF and the hardcover for one price too. So that kind of covers that. So before we go more into my bullet point, I'm going to show you guys a comparison between the two right now. Let's go ahead and look at the websites first. Necrotic Gnome sells Old School Essentials. If you look at the website here, you see that their art style is fantasy based and old school based, but it has more of an old fairy tale vibe art style. Kind of like the Grimm Tales, the old folklore fantasy stories from like Ireland, fairies and elves, fairy kingdoms, kind of like the Elfland's Daughter novel. I think like from Lord Denzi, that kind of artwork. And I really like it. It definitely has a vibe. And it's not the same exact art style as original AD&D, but this art style is really cool too. It has a little bit of flavor of pulp fiction, like a little bit of old Conan, and I like it a lot. So it's got the same simple, robust rules that you would expect. It's all about shared imagination, improvisation, and fun. More theater of the mind, right? And it's also easy to learn and reference. And this company, they set the bar for layout. They make sure that every spell, character class, everything fits on one page. So you're not flipping through the book looking for something. It's highly referenceable at the table, so it doesn't interrupt your play. That can be a nightmare with more robust systems, like Advanced Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder or 5th edition. Even Castles and Crusades has a little bit of that problem too. I kind of wish they would format it like Old School Essentials. They have high quality art and print, like I mentioned before, and they're compatible. So this is the bonus for this rule system, is they're fully compatible with all those modules, like the B2 module, Keep in the Borderlands, any of those hundreds of modules from back in the 70s and 80s. That's huge. Any experienced dungeon master can convert a module or a dungeon or a stat block to any edition of D&D. But a lot of dungeon masters say, you know, I spend money on this product and I don't want to have to do the work. That's why I bought it. And I understand that point of view too. So what's great about this is it's perfectly compatible. You don't have to worry about it. There's a huge difference between 5th edition modules and AD&D modules. It takes a lot of conversion. It's a completely different game. Now, farther down, you see they got bargain sets. If you buy both at the same time, you get a discount. They have a cool Dungeon Master screen, and they also have all the supplements, adventures, and downloads. So the supplements are interesting because they have a Zine. I have all 4 of these. I don't have the 5th one yet. I like them a lot. The artwork's cool. They got great articles inside them. They're very useful for your game. They add more character classes and races and things like that. The only thing I don't like, and they're priced good, like $8. The only thing I don't like about it is the shipping cost. That's kind of tough when the shipping cost is more than the product. Then there's the shield right there. And there's also like a rogues gallery, the necromancer, stuff like that. All this extra stuff. And then if you look at the modules, they call them adventures. And look at how many modules they have. So that's all of them right there. So they have 10. I guess the one in development, Old School Essential Starter Set, Dungeons of the Undermoon. That's cool. The other rules, Shadowdark has that too, but this is the first I've seen it on this one. And these, just a brief mention about these modules. Yeah, they're good. I'm seriously good. I run them at the school. And I also use them to vet players. I run this epic sandbox version campaign of Temple of Elemental Evil in Greyhawk. That's a serious campaign. It takes great commitment. You need strong players to play that campaign. The ones that want to stick around, engage, and stay with it for a long period of time and get involved and role play well. It's hard to find players, and it's really bad if you get new players into a campaign like that, and 20 sessions in, you find out they're not the kind of player you want at the table. Not only do you need a really great DM to pull something like that off, but you also have to have good players, and they have to like playing with each other. You really want to vet your players first. I know they call that session 0, but vetting them through a short adventure is better, believe me. You get to know them a little better. And it usually takes about 5 to 7 sessions to go through these modules. These modules are fun. They're really cool. They're very interesting. They freak people out. You know what old school D&D is all about? It's about those really unique rooms, unique monsters, unique traps, unique treasure, and the players are constantly discovering and exploring and wonder, trying to decipher what's going on and figure things out. And that's a whole lot of fun. It's not boring at all. These modules definitely fit the bill. They have old school art with the maps and things like that. But they also provide VTT maps too for like Roll20 and Fantasy Grounds. I ran all these. I ran all these and I created VTT maps for most of them on my Patreon. My Patreon's free for anybody that wants to join it, and they can get all this stuff downloaded for free. I provide higher resolution versions of my work on there for Patreons only. And also, if you want to support my project, you're welcome to go there and join me too and get updated on everything we've been doing. I work on this stuff every day. Now let's go ahead and look at the other one. This one's called the arcanelibrary.com. And the very first thing you see on there is a picture of their wonderful book. It looks very high quality. Both sets do come with that marker string, the ribbon, the cloth ribbon. That's something they both have. I see this $59, so it's $1 less than I thought. It has a lot of great reviews, and supposedly won all these awards, which I don't know what those are. I'm sure Old School Essentials won all those awards too a couple of years ago. I wouldn't really take that as proof that the game is going to be any good, even though I don't doubt it is good. It looks like they're coming out with a campaign. Now, Old School Essentials came out with the Dolmenwood campaign. Kickstarter I backed for like $180, and I'm waiting for the books to get delivered. And it's a really big Kickstarter. It's a whole campaign setting. The campaign setting is really cool. I run it for the kids at school. They love it. You can place it anywhere in any campaign world. I just run it as a self-contained little world. It's 100 miles across. Really cool maps, too. I made some maps for that campaign. So it looks like, back to Shadowdark, it's called Shadowdark, The Western Reaches. And it looks like they're talking about the Cursed Scroll Zines. You can pledge right now. So I guess that's the pledge Kickstarter for that campaign setting. They're delivering them right now. And I waited 2 years. I really don't like Kickstarters. They take too long. I really thought I was going to get it over a year ago. Oh well. Okay, so scrolling down, there we go. There's the products. So it looks like we have dark solo rules. So I guess they have a fan base for solo play, and they really like that. And it looks like they're catering to those kind of players. I'm definitely not that kind of player or dungeon master, but I know there's people out there like that appreciate stuff like this. And it looks like they did a good job at that. And they also have cursed scroll zines, and they're more expensive. They're almost double the price of the other ones from Old School Essentials. They have 3 out right now, and I'm sure they're pretty good too. I don't know what's included with them, but I'm sure it's more character classes and races and things like that. You also have a quick starter set, print and PDF, for $19. That's pretty good too. Old School Essentials has a free set too, by the way, free download. But the print is not free. And they have an RPG Quick Start Zine 4-pack. And there's the screen. Now the art style is stark black and white. It's not fairy tale fantasy based like Old School Essentials is. Now, technically, you can't really say one's better than the other. It's just your taste. And I like both. Put that out front. They're cool art style. You know what? Unique is everything. Commitment to uniqueness to something is everything. 5th edition is just slop put together for the masses. There's nothing unique or good about any of their art. And there's a lot of videos about that too. This new Player's Handbook and DM Guide, it's absolutely horrible. I know all the good people from 5th edition left a long time ago, 5 to 10 years ago, so there's nobody left there. I never had a strong opinion on anybody that used to work for them, except for in the early days. You know, because Living Greyhawk was the official D&D setting for 5th edition back in the 2000s, 2000 to 2009. And that was really cool. Thousands of modules were put out then. You just couldn't get them. You have to run them at conventions. I happen to have all the ones for the Temple of Elemental Evil area, which is not Temple of Elemental Evil modules. They're later on in the timeline, but I'm converting them and using them in the 576 Common Year timeline for running the module to expand the villages in the area, to populate the land, like the gnarly forest and stuff. So you got a community-sourced adventure from Gary Con, and that's free. That's really cool. I'll probably check it out later. The art style is really good too. Look at that art style. That's Pulp Fiction right there. So their art style is stark contrasty, like kind of like horror and gritty, and then they went for Pulp Fiction. I think it's cool. It's nice. I think all fantasy artwork should be kind of like this. I really dislike this realistic artwork. I know there's a lot of fans out there that like it. Even in my own Discord, I got players that run Pathfinder and things like that, and they love the realistic. I see their artwork that they make for their articles, and it's all really realistic looking, like a real person. I'm glad you like it, but that's not the kind of artwork I go with when it comes to running a fantasy game. Okay, so now Volume 3, mini adventure, and t-shirts and stuff. And I think Necrotic Gnome definitely has all this too. All right, so I just wanted to compare the two websites of the products that they have. So they're pretty similar, except Old School Essentials is definitely more mature because it's been around a few years longer. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the rules. Doop and doop. Okay, I'm going to compare them side by side. I'm not attempting to determine if one rule set's better than the other. I'm just comparing the two to see what differences there are. Because there's a lot of different play styles and a lot of different kind of campaigns. You know, when it comes to D&D, you have a play style, you have a campaign, which is separate, and then you have different players. So you have to mash it all for everybody to want to play. You can get a dungeon master that wants to run Shadowdark, but you can't find any players that want to play it. I had the same problem with Old School Essentials. I came across a whole group of players that have been playing since the 80s, and all they ever played was AD&D all these years. And so I ran them through a Hole in the Oak with first level characters from Old School Essentials, and the cleric can't even cast a spell yet until he's second level. And so they had a problem. They didn't really appreciate the game at all. They didn't like the simplicity of it or how fast-paced action and role-playing. They had trouble engaging the game away from the character sheet. And that's the intention of these kind of games. You don't really want to focus on the character sheets. You focus on role-playing and engaging the campaign and the game, the world. Now, Shadowdark, This is just the quick start guide, and like I said before, it's not a fair comparison between the two. I know the player's guide for Shadowdark has a lot more to it. I just want to compare what's here. And I also want to figure out why they're saying it's so close to 5th edition. That doesn't make sense at all. You can't get far away from 5th edition as possible without these games. So we'll see. I can't quite see the screen, so sorry. Arrows. Okay, so what we have is a short list of basic gear, and that's expected from typical OSR games. And Old School Essentials has the same thing. Now, this is the main book. This is the PDF that I bought. So it's the whole game. You can't really compare. But I definitely want to compare the basic... Where'd it go? Wow. But I definitely want to compare the same pages, equivalent. So both rule sets, as you can see on screen, they both have the same simplicity. You have a list of items and the cost. So the cost with OSE, as you can see on the chart, is basically just gold. So that's even more simple. The more advanced equipment guide has a lot more details, but this is just the basics of this chapter. And it looks like on Shadowdark has the same thing, but they're a little bit more advanced, I see. They actually have cost in gold, silver, and copper. They also add another column for how many items you get and some more information there. And what they have is a gear slots. So you can carry the number of items equal to your strength stat or 10. And also all gear, besides typical clothing, fills 1 gear slot. And gear is hard to transport, fill more than 1 slot. So they kept that really simple. They went with that to make the game more fun and accessible and quick. Old School Essentials does the same thing, but they put a lot more detail into it. They add a coin weight. So every item has a weight in coins. Like a battle axe weighs 50 coins. Backpacks and things like that have a carrying capacity of coins, like 400 coins. So they're a little bit more advanced when it comes to that. Shadowdark has gear slots to make it even more simple. But OSE also has that option too to do slot encumbrance as well. But I won't show you that here because it wouldn't be fair. So you have armor class. You have difficulty classes. You have an easy dice roll is 9. So you have to roll a 9 or higher to succeed in leaping a chasm or sneaking up on a guard. And a normal difficulty would be a DC 12, like it can open a door. A hard event would be 15, and something very hard, like heroic, like something that Conan could do, that'd be an 18 or higher. Then they also have morale, and all this is the same in Old School Essentials. It's just presented a little bit differently based on 0 edition D&D. Morale is when you roll DC 15 or higher. Now, I don't know if the main rule book changes this. Essentials in the Dungeon Master Guide has a monster manual section, and each monster has a morale die roll score, and you have to roll that number or higher for them to make the morale check. And it looks like this is a flat morale check for everything to keep it simple and accessible. Then the next rule is dying. It's a death timer. Die 4 plus your con modifier. 1 turn, roll d20, rise with only 1 hit point. So maybe this is what they talked about when it's close to 5th edition, because 5th edition have those death saves. You get 3 of them, and that's what this does. Old School Essentials, when you get dropped down to 0, guess what happens? You're dead. Game over. Make a new character. So they have an optional rule. They have a few options you can use if you want, and that's also in the book, like negative hit points and things like that. The Dolmenwood campaign is a whole nother rule set, by the way, but we're not going to talk about that. This is more like 5th edition meets AD&D. Okay, so now the next one is distance and movement. So if you're close to somebody, you're 5 feet, near is 30 feet, far is within sight. So that looks like those are zones of combat. That's what Professor Dungeon Master talked about several years ago. Climbing is a dex or strength check, half your speed, if you fail by over 5 points on your die roll. You take die 6 damage every 10 feet. You can freely move through allies, same thing with Old School Essentials. You can pass a strength or dexterity check to move through enemies. In OSE, they have a rule about pushing them out of the way, which is pretty much the same thing. Swimming, half speed again, strength check, con is how many rounds, hold your breath. Spell focus, you can't cast other focus spells while focusing. Do a spell casting check at the start of your turn, succeed, stays in effect, fail, spell ends. You do not lose the ability to cast that spell. That's different. Used in Old School Essentials, if you fail your spell or it gets interrupted, it's gone. You don't have it memorized anymore to get it after you're rested. Distraction. You have to make a spellcaster check for maintaining focus. Old School Essentials does not do that either, but there are advanced rules. So the next page is a Shadowdark, about what they're all about and who wrote it and their copyright and things like that, their legal information. Then there's the table of contents. So we just went through the basics and the overview. So it's overview, background, stats, and ancestry, which I heard in another video that means race. Fighter, priest, thief, wizard. In Old School Essentials, we'll start from the beginning here. In Old School Essentials, you have acrobat, assassin, barbarian, cleric, drow, druid, dwarf, elf, fighter, half-elf. Halfling, illusionist, knight, magic user, paladin, ranger, and thief. Some of these character classes are original classes racist class, which is really a traditional zero D&D. Like a dwarf is a character class. If you break what a dwarf down, if you break that character class down, like the dwarf or the halfling, you'll see what kind of multi-class that really is. It's kind of interesting. You can just call him a fighter thief. That's basically what his abilities are. I don't know if that's what I've said was correct, but you get the idea. These are the races you get. Drow, dwarf, elf, gnome, half-elf, halfling, half-orc, human, and Snurvnublin. I believe those are the evil gnomes. So in Shadowdark, you get just those 4 classes. And when it comes to ancestry, we'll have to check that out in a minute. So titles, alignment, language, deities, gear, character names, level advancement, rolling dice. So let's go ahead and go on down to the next section. So I'll compare it about what both games are about. Shadowdark is a fantasy adventure game where you and your companions delve into buried ruins, lost cities, spider-infested forest, and even fearsome dragon lairs in search of gold and glory. That's a dungeon delving game. And actually, Old School Essentials is the same thing. That's a lot of fun, though. It is. It's not a serious, epic, open sandbox type campaign, but not everybody wants to run that. It depends on what kind of players you have and what kind of time you have. And these kind of games are fun. They really are. My kids at school love it. So basically, the Shadowdark is a place where dangers and darkness hold sway. It clutches ancient secrets and dusty treasures and rotting claws and daring fortune seekers to tempt their fates. That almost sounds like a campaign setting. With your adventuring companions at your side, you confront the Shadowdark's sinister traps, formidable magics, and ruthless monsters. Basically, they're saying the same thing again. This is a dungeon delving type game where you go adventuring into dungeon style type adventures. If you survive, you bring back all these riches and become heroes. What defines the game? Speed, danger, simplicity. Yes, those are all things about OSR games, including Old School Essentials. Magic is perilous and battles are fast and deadly. Being clever is crucial for survival. So you would think that fact that Shadowdark had simpler mechanics until now would make it faster than Old School Essentials. But Old School Essentials is considered really fast too, by the way. So I guess this might be a little faster. Shadowdark RPG is rules light and intuitive. It encourages quick decisions rather than hunting through the rulebook. In this game, a torch only holds back the pressing darkness for 1 hour of real-world time, which is different. There isn't a moment to waste when flames are burning low. They have real-world time, a mechanic for light source, and none of the character classes can see in the dark. Not like 5th edition where everybody can see in the dark, and darkness is absolutely meaningless. Old School Essentials is pretty much the same thing, but they do have character classes that can see in the dark. Just not a lot of them. Some of them, like elves, can't do it, but a dwarf can. He's got dark vision. Most of the party won't be able to see in the dark either with Old School Essentials, unless they all play dwarves. So in Shadowdark, you can't see, and I love it as a dungeon master. It makes the game very dramatic and fun and exciting. Dangerous. If you can't see, that's trouble. It's like a time ticker. Like a couple of those DMs online talk about how a good game, an exciting dramatic game is have a time element. You're ticking down, and it causes tension at the table. Yeah, that's what that's for. The way Old School Essentials does is they have a chart, and in every turn you check it off. 6 turns per hour. You check off the chart until the torch is burnt out. It's not real time. It's in-game turns. It's when you move and search and do things, it takes a turn. It takes a turn to do that. You just start checking them off until that torch burns out, and then they're stuck without light. So how do you play? Everything you need to know is here. Great. So let's keep going down. The basics. Old School Essentials pretty much says the same thing in a different way. Fantastic adventure. The players work together. Fearsome monsters, plots, deadly traps. It's an old school role-playing game, styled with the beloved games of the 70s and 80s, yeah. It's relatively rules-light. They used those words, relatively rules-light game, where the rules are kept simple in order to let the imagination and fast-paced gaming go. And that's just too much for some players, obviously, like the ones I had that AD&D group that I ran. Also, they're streamlined rules with the books carefully structured to maximize usability during play. That's what the great layout's all about. You can tell by looking at this page. It's a modular game, so it can easily be expanded to play in many different fantastic genres and game worlds. They did a great job with layout and modularity. So a little section about advanced fantasy. Then the next is about new role-playing game. This book explains the rules of the game in an easy-to-learn way. The rules, however, do not demonstrate how role-playing game actually works in practice. Some recommendations for those with no experience, like the easiest way to learn is just to dive in and play. Another is to watch other people play. That's what they said in the book. New to old school games? So newer RPGs, like post-2000, tend to work from a different set of design principles. It's a completely different game. I think everybody understands that by now. They also have different play expectations. Players who are familiar with the newer RPGs, but not with the old school style of play, will find the following documents. They recommend Principia Acroprefa by Ben Milton, Stephen Lumpkin, and David Perry. Also, the Quick Primer for Old School Gaming by Matthew Finch. These articles are kind of dated by now. There are better resources out there to understand old school gaming, some better videos that's been out since then. That's what I would recommend. So then they added a little note about rulings. In old school D&D, the rules are not intended to cover all possible eventualities, but the referee must be ready to apply judgment to resolve any unexpected situation. That means the rules are not codified. That means there's not a rule for everything that could happen in the game, like 5th edition or Pathfinder. And so that frees the players up to be able to do anything they want, to try it. It's up. So the weight goes on the shoulders of a good dungeon master. You really do need a great DM to run a great game. The ones that have the experience and maturity to roll with anything the players do, and actually run a fair and good game and have the players really be engaged and have a great time. Let's see. Okay, so back to Shadowdark. Shadowdark explains that you decide your character's actions and tell them to the referee or a game master. It's unfortunate that they use those terms. It's called a dungeon master. But in this game, they decided to go with a more modern take on that position, calling it a referee. A referee really isn't somebody that runs a role-playing game. But a game master would be. They use game master in other rule systems, so that's my problem with that. So the GM determines if your actions are successful. This is back and forth between you and the GM. This explains how the game system works, how role-playing works in this game, really, the basics. You describe your action, and it goes over about movement. So it explains movement, that how you can move up to near. Near is a distance, which is 5 feet. Remember that? And roughly up to 30 feet total. You can break this movement up any way you want. You can move 10 feet, do something, move another 10 feet, do something, and move as much as you want, as long as you don't go over your maximum, which is usually 30 feet. Old School Essentials has more definitive rule for that. You can do your movement and then attack. The basic version of Old School Essentials is very definite of what you can do in a round. It's based in 0 D&D. I don't like that system. It's too rigid. Now, when it comes to old D&D, we all harp upon role-playing, agency, doing what you want, thinking outside the box. Well, a lot of these rules, including Old School Essentials, they have and I think Shadowdark has the same thing going on with their charts. They kind of gamify the game. It turns kind of gamey. It's all based on these random results of tables. I prefer not to do that when I'm running my games. I like to do theater of the mind and engage and immerse myself into the game and role play, not limit myself to these artificial tables. I noticed that's what both systems do here. I guess Old School Essentials does it more with that than anything else. Each person takes a turn. The GM's going clockwise. I go by a different order of things. Not only do I do an order of initiative, but I also do an order of spotlight. Who's in the action first, who's more engaged at the time, and I go in that order. People in the back go last. The dice, basic stuff again. The stats, gives you a description of what all the stats mean. This page is for people that's never played the game before, so this really simplifies, teaches somebody for the first time how to play D&D. I noticed there's a -4 to +4. Traditional D&D is -3 to +3. And I know 5th is -5 to +5. Old School Essentials is -3 to +3. Checks, die 20, make your check, all the same kind of stuff. Difficulty class is a DC. Okay, that's all normal. Hit points, typical weapon damage, character 0 hit points die in 1 to 4. Characters at 0 hit points die in 1d4 plus Constitution modifier rounds. Characters are retired from play. So this is totally different. In standard Old School Essentials game, you're dead at 0. And then there's some optional rules you can use if you want. This one changes things. It actually, you're dead after 1d4 rounds plus your Constitution bonus. And that's definitely different. I love the art. It's great. I like the vibe. It's more immersive looking. It's action pose. It's a scene that something's happening in. 5th Edition doesn't do this. They're static. I like the quote here. The wise and the foolish risk their fortunes in the Shadowdark. The darkness decides who is who. This reminds me of a custom rule set made for a specific customized custom campaign world. Dolmenwood does that. Dolmenwood has a custom rule set for the Dolmenwood campaign. Hyperborea does that too. Hyperborea has the customized specific niche AD&D version for their campaign world. So they go over an overview of what a name, ancestry, class, level, descriptions of what these things mean for a new player in case they don't understand. I appreciate that because if you got somebody learning something for the first time, a lot of people aren't very good at teaching because they overlook obvious things that they assume somebody already knew. Like, what does AC mean? You would assume they already knew what that meant, but some players don't. I'm glad they outlined that. Attacks. You can wield the weapons you wield and how you can use them to fight enemies on page 50. You got talents, your special abilities. They call them talents. So your class, your ancestry, which is race, and talent roles grant you these. The benefit talents combine, you can have multiple roles. These are abilities, class abilities. In traditional Dungeons & Dragons, each class had abilities, like the Thief class does, or Ranger. Ranger has tracking. Spells. Some classes can learn and cast spells. Page 52. The gear. It's an equipment you have. The number of items is 10 plus your strength stat. First level characters. The first level character starts with a background, page 14. Stats, page 15. Choice of ancestry. So this is a list of creating a character in a logical order to help you create a character for the first time. To keep you organized. So you don't miss nothing. So the next page is background. Now, Old School Essentials does this too. These rule systems are meant for breaking in new players into the game, into having them learn how to play D&D that's never played before. That's one of the things that's great about it, because the game's so quick, fun, engaging, and simple to learn that it's really great for enticing new players to get hooked on playing D&D. A more robust or advanced or newer systems out there like the WotC 5e or Pathfinder, they're very complicated games, especially for a new player. They have to learn a lot, and especially if they want to be a spellcaster. They just get overwhelmed. You'll hear that comment a lot. They have no idea what they're doing. And this game is meant for them to learn. That's why we run Old School Essentials at the school, for those kids. So when they finally do get to another game someday, maybe it's 5th edition or Pathfinder, they're going to be really good players. They're going to have the basics down. They're going to be really good role players. So one of the reasons why they have a list of backgrounds is because new players really can't think of anything besides the standard tropes. Even if they can think of that, they'll have trouble. They don't understand what it entails, what it means in the game. So it's easier to have a list for them to roll on or choose from. It'll help them create their character quickly and get them to understand the game. So this is a great help for our new player. And the stats, next page, is just a description of what the base stats are and what you can do with them. This is a great description of what strength, constitution, or wisdom actually does for a new player. It's all the basics here. There's nothing different about this than any other game, except for the modifier of -4 to +4. And ancestry, which is races. So you can be a dwarf, elf, goblin, or halfling. Now, this proves that this game system is for a certain campaign world. It's not a traditional Dungeons and Dragons game. Because you have a goblin race, which is not traditional, but you do have the dwarf, elf, and halfling, because they added a goblin race. This is what makes a unique rule set for a custom campaign setting. Also, it's your game. You don't have to use these races or classes either. It's up to you. So it's good that they offer the choice if you want to do something like that. But I know a lot of newer players like creating characters like that. And traditional players like to stick with the traditional classes and races. You got half-orc and you got human. I'm glad they added half-orc because that is traditional Dungeons and Dragons. I know they did away with that with the recent edition of D&D that nobody seems to like anymore. Okay, so the fighter class is basic fighter type. But I see the difference between this and this. The differences I see between this and traditional D&D is the fact that he has talents. Okay, the first thing I see right off the bat, what makes this different from traditional D&D, is the fact that he has an optional ability. He has an optional ability called Weapon Mastery, which was an option back in the day. It is also an option in Old School Essentials, but it looks like this is a class feature now. And also they add Grit, which adds a mechanic that's not traditional Dungeons and Dragons. It's called Advantage. So I guess maybe that's where that one reviewer was comparing this game to 5th edition because of this mechanic right here. That's a definitive 5th edition mechanic, which is a different game entirely. That's what the Advantage check is. And so I see they added that. Now traditionally, all classes have abilities. Like the thief has hide in shadows or move silently. Dungeons and Dragons is a class-based game. It's not a skills-based game. So that means specific character classes have specific abilities that they can use. It looks like the author combined some sort of skill-based system to this game. And so maybe that's another reason why he thought this was more like a 5th edition game, even though the whole concept of this rules-like game is nothing like 5th edition. But these two facts right here actually is partly from 5th edition style of game. So I don't know when you get a different talent, but I guess you roll 2 dice 6 and you get one of these. And I guess every time you go up a level, you get to roll on this. Below that, just the priest class, which is a cleric in traditional Dungeons and Dragons. They call them crusading Templars, prophetic shamans, and mad-eyed zealots who wield the power of the gods and cleanse the unholy. They can use clubs, crossbows, daggers, mace, sword, staff, and warhammer. So they're not restricted to blunt weapons. They can wear any armor or shield. They have dice 6 for hit points. That's all typical. Their languages, they can turn undead, which is typical. And they got priest talents, which is not traditional Dungeons and Dragons. And a deity that they serve, which I appreciate. Because in my campaign World of Greyhawk, a cleric or a paladin has to worship a specific god. And depending on the god they worship, you get certain special bonus abilities too. And you also belong to a certain kind of church. They have their own vibe, wardrobe, and way they look at life in general, the way they behave, things like that. Then they have the spell casting. And you get 2 tier 1 spells of your choice at the very beginning. Those are level 1 spells, by the way. They call them tier spells here. Below is a chart for those tier spells. And so at level 1 you get 2 first level tier spells, and at level 2 you get 3 first level tier spells. And so I see that this game system goes up to 5th level tier spells. So at 10th level or at 9th level. To the thief class, they are rooftop assassins, grinning con artists, and cloaked cat burglars who can pluck a gem from the claws of a sleeping demon and sell it for twice its worth. That's a thief. And that sounds like a traditional thief from D&D. They can use clubs and crossbows, daggers, short bow, short sword. That sounds reasonable to me. Leather armor, good. It looks like they can wear mithril chainmail, which is really odd. Why would they specifically say mithril chainmail? That sounds like somebody had an exacting thought about that subject by typing that into this rules. They get 1 die 4 hit points, which is normal, and they can backstab, and they get to do an extra weapon die of damage. It's not double damage like traditional D&D. And they have thievery, which is climbing, sneaking, hiding, applying disguises, finding, disabling traps. Those are class-based abilities I was talking about earlier. So they do have those here. And they also have thief talents to go along with it. The next one is the wizard class. Ruin tattooed adepts. That's specific to a kind of wizard. They're bespectacled magi and flame conjuring witches who dare to manipulate the fell forces of magic. Dagger, staff, no armor, die 4 hit points. Languages. They have spells, but they have to cast a spell. They have to succeed on a DC 15 intelligence check to successfully cast it. That is not traditional Dungeons and Dragons. You only have to use that roll for being interrupted in combat. I'm not saying it's bad or anything. I'm just saying it's different. And I know some players and DMs like it. I can't imagine why players would like it because it makes the game harder for them. I can see how people want the game to be more lethal because of that. But the problem I see is the complaints over the years of the wizard to begin with. Now you're making it even harder. People never wanted to play wizards before. You know how hard it is to play a first level wizard in D&D? And they complain, I get 1 spell, magic missile, pew, and that's all I get to do. I had a guy complain about that with old school essentials from the AD&D group. Unbelievable. He couldn't roleplay. I said, there's so much you can do in the game. So yeah, having 1 spell, making the game harder, that is kind of a tough thing to swallow. But I guess they made up for it. 3 tier 1 spells of your choice at first level. So that kind of helps. Let's see what the chart looks like. There you go. 3, 4, 4 and 1, 4 and 2, 4, 2, 1. So you do get more spells. Cool. And you get your wizard talents. If you roll a 10 or 11, you get to learn an additional wizard spell. Choose a talent for +2 hit points. Cool. I just want to give you an example. Scroll back up. I'm going to give you an example of the wizard here to see what the differences are. Wizard. They don't call them wizards in old school essentials. AD&D have never been called wizards. They've always been called magic users. So magic users, for years, for decades, they've always been called magic users. The experience points, 2,500. Does that show here? I just realized it. There's no experience points chart. It must be a different page. We'll get to that later. The savings throw chart, the spell chart, they only get 1 spell, as you can see. Spellcasting, using magic items, combat. They have optional rules here. You see how the magic user class is a 2-page spread? Because they added the chart and the artwork. This could be 1 page if they didn't add that artwork. They're really good with their layout. It didn't have to be 2 pages. They decided to do it because they wanted all the classes to be that way. See that? You lay the book open, and that's what you're looking at. A 2-page spread. You don't have to flip pages. Look how good that layout is. It's stunning. The magic user is pretty much the same, except you don't have to roll to cast a spell. And you don't get a lot of spells to cast. So it's kind of tough. You know, Paladin, same thing. Let's go back to Shadowdark. It's hard to really compare this because I'm looking at the free version of their Player's Handbook. Next is titles. These are level titles. When you go up to a certain level, you get a certain name to go with your name, like knight or a squire or a bandit. They did that with AD&D too, which was really random. I think this one's more logical, based compared to the AD&D version. So that's cool. It's neat. They wasted a whole page on that, but that's okay. Thief titles, wizard titles, alignments. Old school essentials did the same thing. They distilled the game down to 3 alignments: chaotic, lawful, and neutral. Chaotic is pretty much evil, lawful is pretty much good, and neutral is pretty much neutral. And it's really easy to role play those 3 alignments when it comes to simplifying this game. And I appreciate that. It is neat. I like it. I think the only time more detailed alignments are good for describing named NPCs. You know, if you want a lot more detail in this NPC that's pivotal to your campaign, that becomes more useful. Languages. They have a good list of languages and who can speak them, which is very useful. I like that. Old School Essentials does the same thing. They have rare languages too. Cool. Language is the key to the most important doors. Krieg, the human wizard, said that once. So these are the deities. All right, so we got proof that this is a specific game system for a specific campaign world. Now, these gods, they're not Greyhawk and they're not Forgotten Realms. It's just the gods that they came up with for their campaign world. I'm not saying this is bad or anything. I'm just saying this game system is, what I see, it obviously is designed for a custom campaign world, because I have other games like this too. You know, Hyperborea and Dolmenwood, they do the exact same thing. They have their own god lists and they have their own rules specific for that campaign. So, you know, I'm not going to go through these in details, but it looks like they have 6, 7, 8 gods. So they have 8 gods to play with. Gear. So they have a gear section, a little bit more description of this gear. And it looks like they have weight for coin. It doesn't really say how much your backpack holds or lantern. It does have some information here, like 1 day of food, flint and steel, small fire. And here's your basic gear again. So we saw that previously because they put this stuff on the front page. So you can open the book and get to the important stuff to use at the game table. Gear slots, we talked about that earlier. The crawling kit. So this is a specific kit for class. So it looks like they put together some backpack kits. Now, Castles and Crusades has a kit book like that too. Supplement, $30. I have it too. It's good. It helps speed up character creation. It looks like that's what they did here too. I don't think Old School Essentials has this in their rule book. I don't think they do. They don't have a kit. You just got to buy their stuff yourself and put it together. Their Dolmenwood campaign has quick creation charts. Armor. So there's your armor. They distilled all the different armor types into just one short list of leather, chain, plate, and shield, and mithril. And they don't classify it as light, heavy, or medium. And they do have a chart, but the chart does show the gear slots it takes and the armor class and dexterity bonus and disadvantages. The plate mail is 130 gold. What I don't like about Old School Essentials is the economy is absolutely broken when it comes to plate mail, because their plate mail is 60 gold pieces. And I'm sorry, I'm wrong. They do have a quick start guide for creating characters quickly. When you roll for your armor, you can roll plate mail for free. So you're able to generate a first level character right from the beginning to have plate mail. The reason I don't like this is because plate mail should cost about 400 to 500 gold pieces, and it's hard to get. And a lot of medieval historical reasons for this, but this is a game. I don't like to give my players anything beyond +1 items for magic items in the game until they're past 3rd level. What can you give them before that to make them excited? And mundane items is what to do, because when you start the campaign, you have limited gold. You can't buy everything. Here you are dungeon delving, and every little scrap item that you find in the dungeon, he goes, oh, I need that. Look at those darts or spikes. I'll grab all 6. I'll put them in my backpack. I don't have any spikes. There's some rope in the corner. I take it. I put it in my backpack because I need some rope. I couldn't afford it. They get excited about these mundane things that are not magical items. Plate mail is a huge non-magical item to get to find in a dungeon. It's massive. When you're 2nd level as a fighter and all you're wearing is chainmail, you just made that player so excited, and it wasn't even a magic item. So I think that's a big fault to these games right here when they make plate mail so cheap. All right, weapons. So it looks like they have a pretty good list of weapons here. It's all basic stuff, of course. Nothing exotic. They do have a bastard sword. And it looks like they provide the bastard sword with dual use, one-handed or two-handed. They do the same thing with Old School Essentials too, of course. I see that it's all standard cost and damage and range. Close range for C, I guess. Far range for far. F for far, C for close. Two-handed, one-handed. The cost and damage. Pretty nice. It looks like they have finesse weapons. So that's another layer of complexity that they added to this game. They added this thing called finesse, which you're able to use your strength or your dexterity modifier to attack with that weapon. So that's beyond basic right there. Loading, that's important too. You must forego moving to reload this weapon. And where's L at? L is right here under crossbow. It's the only one that has it. Okay, cool. I like that. Okay, so they have character names. Again, not all new players can come up with a cool name. We don't want somebody calling their first level fighter Pool Boy. That's an old joke. I remember playing EverQuest back in 1999, and this guy named Pool Boy was always hanging out in the Knoll Caverns. I go, couldn't you come up with a better name than that? Pool Boy. So this is a really good example of how useful this chart is. Here we go, I found it. So it looks like to save space, they put all their experience points on one page. This is the same thing they did with 5th edition. All character classes need the same amount of experience points to go up a level. And you don't need a lot of experience points to go up a level. And there's your talents right there. Obviously, I'm a fan of traditional Dungeons & Dragons. And this is quite different from D&D. It does make the game simpler, easier to play and understand. So I get that. But I wouldn't want to use it myself, of course. Talent rolls increased your hit points. So it talks about how to go up a level. And now there's gameplay. How far are we? Oh, yeah. So we're about 75% through the rulebook here. Advantage, disadvantage, 5th edition mechanic. You can do a natural 20. Natural ones. The D6 decider. A GM can just flat out say roll a D6. You got luck tokens. I think luck tokens idea was taken from another game. I can't remember the name of that game, but I ran it once. Anyway, it's a popular game, and it looks like you can use it to modify your success if you need to. It's a gimmick mechanic for a game that some people like to use. And then there's a whole page here on how to use your stats in the game, which is very useful, especially for a new player. This will give you ideas of what you can do in the game. Just look this over and see if it fits any situation that you're in. And maybe it'll open up some ideas in your head of what you might be able to do. Okay, then it talks about how you make checks, when to make a roll, how it works in the game, the DC difficulty class, what makes a DC 9 or a 12 or a 15. So that explains that. They also have contested checks. There is no contested checks in Old School Essentials. They have a different way of going around that, which I'm not going to get into right now. They have real time. So time passes. Now, another thing, so it looks like this next page is something that's quite different about this game than any other game. It's real time. Real time passes in the game world at the same pace that's happening in the real world. I like that too. I kind of like that. If a Dungeon Master doesn't have really good control over his players and they waste a lot of time, this is a good mechanic to keep them under control. So 1 hour real time goes by as 1 hour of real time goes by as 1 hour of in-game time goes by. That means your torch goes out and things happen like wandering monsters and things like that. So this is a time ticking mechanic to help move the game along, where they spend 2 hours bickering over how to open up a treasure chest. Then they explain what turns and rounds are. A turn is a player's movement described the characters that does to the Dungeon Master. Players act one by one on each of their turns. Some turns need a bit of room to breathe. A character is able to speak with someone and make a few reasonable exchanges while they're playing. It's called role-playing. A round completes when each person has taken one turn. Old School Essentials rules, all the players go, then all the monsters go. All the players go, then the whole other side goes. And I don't like that at all, but that is the basic OD&D version of basic OSR. That rule set is the OSE Basics version of D&D, which is based on 0 level D&D. But the advanced version of Old School Essentials, you go round by round per player. And that's the way I've always run it since AD&D days in the 80s. Turn order. They have initiative. At the beginning of the game, the GM establishes initiative in the order which the players act. Everyone rolls a d20. Okay. Oh, okay. So I guess that's more like 5th edition too. OSE, it's a die 6. And as their dexterity modifier, the GM adds the highest dex modifier to any monsters if relevant. The person who rolled the highest takes the first turn, and the turn moves clockwise. Same thing with OSE. Freeform mode, so there's an option. You can do freeform like I was explaining earlier. Player turn. The player counts down, explains who it goes next depending on their initiative. The GM counts down. So this spells out how the game works when it comes to initiative. Crawling. Okay, so crawling means dungeon exploring, it looks like. So you got the Shadowdark, Vision, Light Sources, and Total Darkness. Basically, this is the section that makes the game dangerous. What happens when your light goes out and you can't see? That makes a big difference in any game. That's a huge core difference. And you got your movement, distances and climbing and falling and moving and swimming, regrouping, your conditions and actions that you can do, like prying a gem from a statue. These are different actions you can take. The encounters, we talk about resting. The resting's the same? I don't know. To rest, a character must sleep for 8 hours. Okay. Sleep can be broken up too. Interruptions. Each stressful interruption, you have to roll a DC 12 Constitution check. Failure means your character consumed the ration, but they gain no benefit from resting. Success means you successfully rested. Depending on the dangerous environment or dungeon that you're in, you can decide if it's unsafe, risky, or deadly. Now, that's how often you roll for wandering monsters. A campfire, like a little more just, it describes how the campfire affects the game too. Then you got your stealth and surprise, and this gets a little tricky, depending on the game system you use. Creatures who are hiding or sneaking must succeed at a dex check to go undetected by other creatures within eyesight. The GM determines the frequency and difficulty of that check. The GM might secretly roll for the check for a character if knowledge of the outcome impacts the situation. In general, the Dungeon Master is supposed to roll for the player, because if the player fails, he knows he fails because he rolled it. And so he's going to try it again. It's like listening at a door. Oh, let me try listening. Oh, you failed? Okay, let me try listening. You don't want the players to know that. You just want them to assume they succeeded. Hiding limitations. You can't hide while other creatures are able to see them. But if somebody can quite obviously see you, you can't just hide. It's not a magic spell. So that's good. That's typical. That's normal. Detecting. To detect, you have to be looking at the right place. Otherwise, you have to make a wisdom check. If you actively look, you'll find that person. If not, then you'd get a wisdom check to see if you notice them. Surprise. This is another big deal about different game systems. A creature who begins his turn undetected has the advantage of surprise if combat hasn't started yet. Those with surprise take one turn before combat initiative roll. A character has advantage on attack rolls. So not only do you get a free melee round, but it looks like you get an advantage on your attack roll during that round. Attack from hiding gives away the attacker's position afterwards, obviously. Okay, I get that. Combat. Determine surprise, combat initiative, combat turns, melee attacks, range attacks, cast a spell, improvise, multitask. It looks like this isn't in any particular order, it's just when you want to do it. The original basic OSE rules is a specific order to these things, where the advanced rules are not. Damage. You can get knocked out. You can do a critical hit with a natural 20. That's all normal stuff. Terrain can affect things. You make a morale check. If half their hit points of a solo enemy or half their number has been reduced, you make the morale check. Death, 0. Death timer, die 4 plus con. You can stabilize, and that's what bandages are for, or spells. Here we go about magic being fickle. You have to make your check, a DC check, a 10. The results. If you fail your spell check, the spell does not take effect. You can't cast that spell again until you rest again. Critical success. If you roll a 20 with your spell check, the effects are double. So that's totally different as well. Critical failure. Okay. So that's cool. Then you have the penance, which is basically a sacrifice value, what tier it is. So if it requires a holy quest or a ritual atonement or something. So the spell, pre-spells, if you fail your focus roll for a priest, I guess your deity is displeased with you and revokes its powers. You can't cast that spell again until you complete this ritualistic penance. And that's the monetary value of the sacrifice you have to make to appease them to get your spells back. So that's a little bit different. The wizards that fail, critical fail, they have a horrible chart of bad things that could happen to you. That would be Dungeon Crawl Classics by Goodman Games. I couldn't remember the name of that game earlier, so I had to look it up. That's a mechanic from that game, which is interesting. This book is so large with the rules that I didn't want to go through it all in this actual video. But as you can see from the spell list here, clerics get up to 5th level and magic users get up to 6th level spells. And there's a lot of rules for adventuring, like time, weight, movement, ability checks, savings throws, damage, healing, death, hazards and challenges, dungeon adventuring, wilderness, waterborne, encounters, evasion, pursuit, combat, all these combat rules, and morale. And I'm sure the main book for Shadowdark has all that too. We're just not seeing this in the free version. All right, so let's go ahead and finish this off here with scrolls and wands. Spell attributes, what these different attributes mean in the spell list. And then I guess the rest of the book ends with the spell list of the spells they can cast, like Floating Disc and Featherfall. And as you can see, let's compare these spells here. We have Acid Arrow, which is not a spell choice with Old School Essentials, but there's Alarm, Mockery, Bless, Burning Hands. There we go. But as you can see from these different spells, the differences between them. Now, Charm Person is a very complicated spell, so it took a lot of room on the page, but they kept it to one column. As you can see, like Detect Magic, it's very simple. The name of the spell, the duration, the range, and a small paragraph describing the spell. Most of these spells are like that. Some of the more complicated spells, like Sleep, has a lot more rules. I wonder if they have Sleep in this guide. Shadowdark. Sleep is right here. So let's compare Sleep. So duration is instant, and the range is near, so they have to be close. Bowcasting range, I guess. You weave a lulling spell that fills a near-sized cube extending from you. So that means within 5 feet from you. Living creatures in this area fall into a deep sleep if they are level 2 or less. Vigorously shaking them or being injured wakes them. The other version from Old School Essentials is advanced version, by the way. It's more like AD&D, but they explained it a lot better here than the original first edition AD&D Player's Handbook. It's also formatted better too. So it depends. So that spell has a duration of 4x4 turns, and it has a range of 240 feet. The sleep spell causes magical slumber to come upon the creature, excluding undead. So right there is a difference. The Shadowdark spell does say living creatures only, so they kind of reduced it in that way too. A single creature with 4 + 1 hit dice or less, or a total of 2d8 hit dice of creatures of 4 hit dice or less each. And then you have to go by weakest target first. And so it actually goes into a lot more detail how to use this spell. And I know that from other reviews I've read, they're praising that the spell descriptions of Shadowdark are simpler and much enjoyable to use because they could just wing it and make the game go faster. But like I said before, yeah, that's great. But you have to have an experienced dungeon master with decades of experience running old school games to be able to pull that off. You're not going to expect a dungeon master that's only played 5 years of 5th edition to be able to do this. He just doesn't have the experience. And that's why these rules for Old School Essentials is a little bit more detailed and specific, but it's also formatted very well. And it's also very terse too compared to the original spell. So it's very easy to understand. It's worded very clearly. Okay, let's continue down past Web. Turn Undead is a spell here. Undead creatures within near, you must make a charisma check versus your spellcasting check. If a creature fails by 10 plus points and is equal to or less than your level, it is destroyed. Otherwise, on a fail, it flees from you for 5 melee rounds. Cool. Join the Dark, Shadowdark RPG community. So they have a Discord server and everything else, and so does OSE. OSE's Discord server is not that good. I don't recommend you go in there. The people there are kind of different, but I'm not sure about the people of Shadowdark. And there's their sample character sheet. Let's see, what's the character sheet here? Oh, God. I don't have a character sheet in front of me, but that's their character sheet for Shadowdark, which is a half page. They have a full page for OSE, which looks similar to this one. It just takes up a full page. There's more writing room for some of these fields. Also, the back page of OSE looks like that. All the charts are on the back page. And I'm sure it's the same with Shadowdark. Everything you need to know to run the game. Okay, so that wraps up the overview looking at the rulebook itself as quickly as I could get through it. I know that took forever, but let's go ahead and wrap this up of what I think the differences are between the two. I've already mentioned creativity and rules and how many books it takes to play. About the combat feel, well, Shadowdark combat is portrayed as fast, desperate, and frantic, and harrowing, unlike longer combat sometimes experienced with other systems like 5th Edition or Pathfinder. OSE rules for combat are included in the player's tome. The other systems emphasize... The description emphasizes overcoming fearsome monsters, suggesting focus on challenge, but it doesn't explicitly detail the pace or feel of combat. Optional rules like charging into melee are available. There's a lot more optional rules. They assume, OSE assumes that you know how to play D&D already and that you're just going to have fun running a group to a dungeon. And so they're not really have a section describing how to play the game. The difference between small and large groups. Shadowdark is stated to work well with both small and large groups due to the faster turn-based resolution preventing player boredom. OSE suggests the ideal party size of 6 to 8 players. It recommends separate groups for more than 4 levels of difference, implying potential challenge of very large and disparate groups. Now, the reason they suggest an ideal party size of 6 to 8 players is for kind of like a balance thing of how well a party can do in a dungeon. So when they wrote these modules and keyed them, they assumed a party size of 6 to 8 players. Also because of the deadly nature. You get down to 0 hit points, you're dead. They expect a certain amount of lethality to the game and losing party members while you're going through this dungeon. So that's why they say ideal party size of 6 to 8. It has nothing to do with how fast you can run the game. OSE and Shadowdark are great at small and large groups because of the fast turn resolution and fast-paced nature of the game. Fast character creation, they both have it. But Shadowdark boasts ultra-fast character creation with streamlined character sheets and online random role player generator. Well, OSE does that too, by the way. They have a basic method of character creation noted for its speed, under 10 minutes for an experienced player, and an advanced method that's more complex and lengthy that offers greater customization. So you got a choice there. So that tells me right there that Old School Essentials is a more advanced game for more of a campaign play, not just a quick one-off. Playstyle of Theater of the Mind or grid map content. Now, Shadowdark is considered to be great for both Theater of the Mind and grid-paced combat. Yeah, they all do. OSE rules cover dungeon adventuring, implying scenarios where mapping and spatial awareness with a grid might be relevant. Wilderness and waterborne adventuring is also included. The books don't really state its preference or suitability of Theater of the Mind versus grid combat. It just lets you run the game the way you want to run it. It can support either. But it's unlike 5th Edition or Pathfinder, where it's almost required to have a grid-based combat because of some of the rules. You have to know exactly where a miniature is on the battle map, kind of like a board game. Neither are balanced. This practically begs you to unbalance your game, both games. The concept of balance isn't directly addressed. When it comes to balance, they don't actively tell you to balance your game. Depending on the module that you buy and run, depending on the author who wrote that dungeon and how well they balanced it or how much they did. But traditionally, especially old school D&D, balancing was not important. In fact, they want things to be unbalanced to make it more fun, to make it more dramatic, more exciting, more scary. Because running away is a legitimate response to an encounter. You're not expected to defeat every encounter you come across, unlike Pathfinder or 5th Edition, where you're expected to conquer 3 to 5 encounters a session and automatically go up a level. Lethality. So Shadowdark is characterized as high lethality. When characters die, even at low levels, from a single monster attack or a spell effect, character death is presented as a possibility. But it's not as lethal as OSE because you're dead at 0, resulting in death. And where Shadowdark, you get this chance to recover, where you roll a die 4 and get a plus your con bonus. Shadowdark isn't as lethal as OSE unless you use optional rules. The light mechanic, So the difference between light mechanic is all the classes and races in Shadowdark can't see in the dark, where some of the races in OSE can. Torches last 1 hour in real world time, where in OSE, torches burn for 1 hour and it illuminates a 30-foot radius. And also the reversal of the light spell creates a darkness spell, indicating the importance of visibility. So you have to keep real-time tracking of light source as a core mechanic in Shadowdark, but in OSE you keep track of it in game terms. Spell casting. So obviously Shadowdark has a spell casting check. OSE does not. Where spellcasting is typical of traditional AD&D, where you pray for your divine spells or you study from your spell books for your arcane spells. Spell descriptions are short, concise, and simple between the two. OSE has a little bit more meat to it, a little bit more information to the spell mechanics to help you run the game better and explain things. OSE also has excellent formatting to keep that very terse and to the point and highly referenceable. So in summary, both games have an old school feel. Shadowdark emphasizes a faster, grittier, and more immediate, dangerous style of gaming, play with a strong focus on resource management and in streamlined mechanics. While Old School Essentials focuses more on resource management and streamlined mechanics. OSE offers more comprehensive and customized system and wider range of character options and detailed magic system, while maintaining a relatively rules-light approach. Now let's compare the modules and supplements for Shadowdark and Old School Essentials. Shadowdark has a growing selection of adventures. The Shadowdark RPG Quick Start set includes a complete adventure, Lost Citadel of the Scarlet Minotaur. And the official Cursed Scroll Zine is a significant source of critically acclaimed adventures, with at least 3 volumes available. That means 3 modules. Furthermore, Shadowdark RPG third-party license has fostered the creation of numerous adventures for independent publishers. By the way, the DM Lair YouTuber designed and made available his own Shadowdark adventures. Other adventure-focused products like the 5 mini adventure cards and the community-created Shadow Dome Thunderdark Zine PDF. Their supplements for Shadowdark is optional Cursed Scroll add-ons, expand the game options. Notably, the core rulebook itself is a rich resource of GM tools that can inspire your creation. It does include encounter tables in diverse locations of monster-generated tables, rumors, traps, hazards, and NPC generators. Also, Shadowdark has a strong Zine presence, primarily focused on Cursed Scroll Zine, which contains adventures-themed character options, monsters, and locations. The Shadow Dome Thunderdark Zine serves as another example of community-driven Zine content. Old School Essentials. Their adventures, however, is more significant strength in terms of adventure content, and it's also 100% compatible with 1981 Basic Expert D&D, the world's most popular fantasy RPG. This grants OSE players and referees access to the extensive back catalog of adventures published by BX over decades, which can be used directly with minimal effort. OSE also enjoys easy compatibility with adventure materials and other games designed to be compatible with the basic expert rules. Also, Adventures from Advanced First Edition is largely compatible too. Supplements. Old School Essentials offers a range of accessories and supplements designed to enhance your gameplay. These supplements add rules, character classes, equipment, spells, monsters, and treasures. The Advanced Fantasy Referee Tome is a crucial supplement for game masters, providing necessary information beyond the Advanced Player's Tome, likely including monster stats and guidance for running and creating adventures. Other supplements include the Referee Screen and the Rogues Gallery. So their Zines is compatible with BX and other OSR systems. It is highly probable. Also, numerous third-party Zines compatible with OSE. These contain adventures, modules, new rules, interpretations, and monsters, and other supplementary content. And there's 5 of them out. So, that was my long review of the two put together. I didn't make too many comments of my opinion on things, besides the mechanics that I spotted. I didn't really speak my mind of how much I care for one system or another. It looks like Shadowdark is made for a quick, fun dungeon delve, for a one-off or a short campaign, where Old School Essentials has enough meat on it to actually extend farther into more of a bigger campaign. I don't think I myself tried to use Old School Essentials in a bigger, massive campaign, like the Temple of Elemental Evil in Greyhawk, and it didn't work. We noticed the shortcomings very quickly after the third session, and immediately switched back to Castles and Crusades. But running the modules for the kids at school or at conventions, it's really good. It's really fun, and we had a blast. And that's perfect for that use case. And it looks like Shadowdark is the same. Shadowdark is probably just a tad easier to understand and learn for a brand new player that knows nothing about Dungeons and Dragons. And it's quicker to pick up immediately as soon as you sit down, where Old School Essentials takes a little bit of effort to explain things. So I think that's the only real differences there, and besides Old School Essentials having a little bit more meat to it. But I can't 100% say that because I don't actually have the Shadowdark actual player's handbook in front of me, so I can't really compare. It's like apples to oranges at this point. In my opinion, I'm pretty much going to stick with Old School Essentials and Dolmenwood for my use case of running one-offs or fitting players for my big campaign. If we're going to have fun one weekend, or want to teach some people how to play D&D for the first time and just do a quick weekend dungeon like Old School Essentials, Hole in the Oak, or the Incandescent Grottos, I'm definitely going to run OSE. I have no interest in picking up another system. They go well beyond expectations of quality and content. Of their product and their rules and the way that game is run, I like it quite a bit. It's really hard to beat. I'm not sure how other systems can actually compete or compare. Now, if Shadowdark comes out with a really interesting campaign setting, which pretty much looks like what their Kickstarter is going to be, kind of like what Dolmenwood is with Old School Essentials, then that could be a game changer. Because that'll take on a whole nother level of immersion to their system that make things much more interesting, like how Dolmenwood did. And so I'll be curious to see how that turns out. I hope you like my review. I know not many people make reviews like this where they compare two systems. And I was hoping I was fair enough and didn't dog on 5th edition or Pathfinder too much. But as you can see, I'm a big fan of Old School D&D, and that's what we run, and all my Patreon members at Three Orcs Discord does too. So if you want to follow more of my content and check out my campaign setting for Greyhawk, please come to my Three Orcs Patreon to support the project and get free content. Also, you can get involved with our project, collaborate, and find out what's going on with us. Discuss your campaigns on our Discord channel. I hope your players...
Did you enjoy video? Consider tossing support on my Patreon. It best ways to support orcs. If you would like to see more content, subscribe and post comments below. It better not be bad.
Enjoy your campaigns as much as I have, and may your dice ever roll through.